Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar today around the prediction of clinical trial outcome. My name is Christian Tidona. I'm the founder and managing director of the BioMed Institute in Heidelberg, Germany. Thanks for joining. And before we start, maybe a quick round of introductions. With me is Yair Benita, our CTO. Yair, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Yair Benita. I'm the CTO of AION Labs. I have a background in, I'm a scientist. I have a background in pharmacology and bioinformatics. I did an academic track all the way to a postdoc, mostly on the bioinformatics side, on data analysis, studying biology. Then worked at Merck in Boston for 5 years, moved back to Israel and led computational teams both in biotech and pharma AI companies.
Thank you very much, Yair. And also with us is the CEO of AION Labs, Marty Gill. Marty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Christian. Marty Gill, the CEO of AION Labs. It's a pleasure to meet everyone here. I hope to have a good conversation. Before coming to AION Labs, I was actually working with one of our partners, Teva Pharmaceuticals, for a little over a decade, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Marty. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping announcements. This is supposed to be a very interactive session, so if you have questions in between, please type them into the chat. You can also putting them into the Q&A box, and you can upvote your questions as well. So make sure you ask as many questions as possible, and in between, I will check, and then we make sure we answer all of your questions. After quick presentations of Yair, Marty, and myself, at the end, there will be also some additional time to answer questions. Okay, without further ado, let me quickly try and share my screen. Here we go. Good. So I hope you can see my screen. The topic of the webinar today is our new call for application at AION Labs called Prediction of Clinical Trial Outcome in Biomarker-Stratified Cancer Patient Populations. Before we dive into the topic, I just want to give you a little bit of background about who you're seeing here and who is involved in this endeavor. And one of the partners is BioMed, our institute in Heidelberg, Germany. It was started 2013, and it's an independent biomedical research institute, which is placed on the campus of the University of Heidelberg in Germany. And it's what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine the best of the two worlds, academia and industry. So on one hand, freedom of research and creativity, and on the other hand, the know-how, how to translate research into something that ultimately will help patients. And we do this via a new innovation model, which is based on global crowdsourcing and local incubation of the best talents and ideas from around the world. We actually published this in Nature Biotech in 2015. Our core values are very important, and this is also important at what we're doing with AION Labs. First of all, we cross-leverage, we inspire each and motivate each other to unleash our full potential. And this means our incubator space is a place for scientists from around the world who have embraced the concept of growing by helping others. So it's a place where you freely share your ideas and where everyone helps each other in their research projects and beyond. Second is cross-pollinate. We embrace diversity as it is the source of innovation. This is a place where we want people to come from completely different backgrounds and to contribute to something that will ultimately help patients, but also to do this from their very individual perspective. So everyone at BioMed, it's around 70 people now, is coming from a different country with a different cultural background, gender, a different educational background, and this is a very fruitful environment to discuss innovation. And last but not least, aim high. Our goal is to enable a new generation of targeted therapies. A little bit of track record. Since we started in 2013, we've been working with big pharmaceutical companies like AbbVie, Boehringer Ingelheim, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and Roche. And with these pharmaceutical companies, we have started 19 different research groups in Heidelberg, each of these groups with a research budget between 3 and 5 million euros for up to 5 years. We have relocated more than 100 top researchers and their families from around the world to Heidelberg. We've completed more than 60 bachelor, master, and PhD theses, so we're also educating early career scientists, and we have more than 50 publications in peer-reviewed journals. And this is just some of the logos where people came from before they joined the BioMedX Institute. And after the 5-year period at BioMedX, they either go to industry or they go to academia. In industry, this is a typical transition many times to the sponsors of our projects, but also you can go back to academia because we publish, and everyone that finishes his or her project at BioMedX will have a continuous publication record so that you can go back for a tenure track in academia. And since 2020, we're also present in Israel in this consortium called AION Labs. You're going to hear more about it in the next minutes from Yair and also from Marty. Just in a nutshell, it's a collaboration between German Merck, Pfizer, Teva, AstraZeneca, an Israeli venture capital fund, Israel Biotech Fund, and AWS, so Amazon. It's supported by the Israeli government, and it's located right next to the famous Weizmann Institute in Rehovot. And there we have an objective in the next 5 years to seed and incubate at least 20 startups in the field of artificial intelligence for drug discovery and development. We have started and completed the first 3 challenges. The first one was in de novo computational design of therapeutic antibodies. The second is in smart AI to advance clinical trial readiness of drug candidates. And the third one, also in antibodies, AI-enabled design and optimization of antibodies for targeted therapies. And this is what such a bootcamp looks like. It's a lot of fun, a lot of energy, and a lot of inspiration. And of course, this webinar is about our 4th bootcamp, which is coming up, and the call is currently open, asking you the big question: can you predict clinical trial outcome? And if you're interested to learn more, you see the link at the top, career.bio.mx, and then you can move directly to the call site. You get also to these sites via the website of BioMedX and AION Labs. But without further ado, I would like to hand over to someone who can really explain this much better than me, which is our CTO, Yair. Yair, stage is yours.
Thank you, Christian. So what I prepared today is some explanation about our specific challenge. I will share my slides. So my goal here is to dive deeper into the details of what we're looking for. Oh, I will remove, excuse me, this Q&A. So my goal is to dive deeper into the details of the challenge. As you saw, it's very broad, and we describe it in not so many details, but I'll try to give you a sense of the key challenges that we are trying to solve. So basically, we called it prediction of a clinical trial outcome in biomarker-stratified cancer patient populations. And what does it mean? So here I'm trying to, basically, I'm going to show you a scheme that I'm going to take through that represents the process. What we're trying to actually do is to predict the success of a phase 3 trial. And typically, the way we work in oncology, we start with small trials that are growing. So early phase 1-2 data will include probably, depending on the indication, it could be 50+ patients in which a new drug has been tested. And what you see here on the left is a mixed patient population. Usually we pre-selected them either by clinical parameters or biomarkers, depending on the drug. Excuse me. And obviously, some of them will respond to the drug and some will not. So the first thing we're looking for, we will obviously provide this data. The first thing we're looking for is for biomarker that stratify the patient population to responders and non-responders. And then basically refine the patient population in which our drug is working. And for that population, the next phase is to actually be able to project into a phase 3 trial. What is the phase 3 going to look like for that redefined patient population with the experimental drug, or with the standard of care, which we did not measure, because in oncology, we typically have single arm trials, okay, in early. So single arm means we don't have a control group. And I'll explain in a second how that looks like, and also will provide a bit more details. Let's start with what we typically measured in early clinical trials. So how do you know if the drug works if we're not comparing it to a control? So what companies typically do, and I took these graphs from papers who published where the early clinical data was published. I didn't put a reference of the drug because it's just to show what people measure. So let's start on the left. On the left, what you see is something called a waterfall plot. And what they measure is the size of the tumor in a patient. So they would continue to measure it over time. And what you see in the graph is the change in % of the tumor volume. And what is typically considered a responder population is minus 30%. So if it shrinks by 30%, so all the, sorry, that's the other way around. All the red are actually responders. And all the gray here are non-responders because their tumor did not change in size from more than, did not shrink more than 30%. So that's one way to look at the data. So the legend is reversed. I apologize for that. That's just my legend. It's not from the paper. And then the other thing we measure is we follow progression-free survival. So how long patients survive on treatment. So on the x-axis, you typically see the time in months since they started the treatment. And what is measured here is the estimated progression-free survival. Similarly, overall survival. So these are just two different metrics that are typically being followed in cancer. So as you see, it's a single arm. There's just the treatment. And we compare it to what is known from the literature in that indication, in that patient population for the standard of care drugs. But we typically don't run it. Okay? So if there are any questions, just feel free. I can't see the chat now, but you can either interrupt me or we can do this at the end. So what do we expect from you? So on the left, you can see what you are going to get as an input data. So of course, the input data can be anything outside of the clinical trial, anything you can get your hands on. But you will also get the early clinical trial data, the phase 1-2 data with whatever we measured. So here I'm going to use a survival plot. It could be PFS, overall survival. Doesn't really matter. There could be multiple readouts, but the idea is that you will get those readouts as well. And of course, we expect you, as I said, to identify biomarkers, but then project for all the different populations, the type of response you would get. So this is before we go into a phase 3, this is what we would expect, right?
Yeah, there's a question in the Q&A from Lorenzo saying, why don't you compare with the control set?
Why don't we do the control set in clinical trials?
Yeah,
I mean,
just go ahead.
Yeah, this is basically in early clinical trial data, the idea is, so if you're thinking about a phase 1, you typically want to assess the dose and the toxicity. The goal is not to measure efficacy. So for that early data, we don't run control because we are studying the drug itself and not the outcome. In phase 2, we are looking for efficacy, but to keep the mostly, at least I believe we should have maybe brought one of our partners to respond. Mostly it's a question of cost. In general, in oncology, the cost per patient is $1 million. So if you're running a clinical trial on 40 patients, it's $40 million. If you're adding the control, let's say if it's the same size, another 40 patients, that's another $40 million. It doubles the cost of your experiment. So we typically want to see that a drug has some efficacy, that it works, and by the metrics that I showed. And then we go into a larger trial, into a larger phase 3 trial, which has all the controls and is a multi-center trial with larger populations and so on. But the phase 3 is extremely costly, right? It could end up being hundreds of millions of dollars. And often the signal looks really good in a phase 2, but then doesn't look so good in a phase 3, and that's of course financially a disaster. So we're trying to avoid this. Adding the control could also be problematic for patients, but that's something we need to take to our partners to ask exactly why, because most patients want to go on another drug that is experimental from which they could benefit and have no interest in being tested with the standard of care, which they probably already have been exposed to. That's my best answer for that one. Additional questions, Christian? Or if Christian, you want to add?
I'm going to throw the questions directly inside. The next question is from Raghavendra. It says, are the set of features that you use for patient population, such as exome sequencing, bulk RNA-seq, fixed, or this can be expanded?
Okay, I will discuss data in a few slides. Okay, so I will have a section devoted to answering that one.
And next one is from Gürkan, is how do you define the duration of a clinical trial?
The duration of a clinical trial. So all of those things are basically, that's the clinical trial design. It could depend on the indication, on the drug, what you're targeting. I don't think that's something that is fixed. Basically, the answer here is it depends, but it's definitely not set. And today in oncology, actually, instead of having, basically, previously we used to do a phase 1, stop, a phase 2 with different patients and stop, and a phase 3 with different patients and stop. Today, all these trials are called adaptive trials. Basically, patients who started in a phase 1 will continue with the trial all the way to a phase 3. It's basically sort of a one trial that is growing with some possibilities of moving patients from different arms. So it's a more complex design. It keeps going until it could be stopped in the middle if we think there's really no benefit. It could keep going until we see that it actually works, or there's enough differential between the different arms. So I'm not sure that it's really fixed, and it's definitely not the same amount of time in different indications and different trials.
There's another one. Where is the data coming from that we will work on? I think I can quickly answer that. Everywhere. It will come in part from the partners that are investing into the project, the pharma companies, but also public data sources, commercial data sources. Anywhere. And there is a question in Hebrew, and my Hebrew is not yet that good. So if you could just type the question in English quickly, otherwise you will laugh at me when I try to read this.
Okay, so let's try to keep the questions on the problem first, and then I'll address questions on data and so on. Okay, so this would be on the right panel. You can see the expected output. So for whatever readout, what we expect you to do is basically estimate the output for the different patient populations. So one population would be patients who get the novel drug, the drug that is being tested, and have a biomarker that we identified in following the analysis of the phase 1/2. The orange one is if we continue with the exact same biomarker as in our early phase 1/2 data, this is what we expect. And then we would like to bring in the standard of care. So this is how these exact same patients will respond to whatever treatment is available in the standard of care. Okay, so different populations and the way they are expected to respond to the drug. Now, I would like to give an example because I found that trying to explain really the key issues worked best with examples when people reached out and I talked to them. So, of course, I'm making this up, but just bear with me and I hope you will understand the concept. So let's say I'm starting to develop drug X and I have a patient population. I'm selecting ovarian cancer for those who have a mutation in the PI3K gene, okay? So that's my selected population. And of course, they're mixed, so the blue and the red. So basically, the blue would be a responder and the red would be a non-responder to my experimental drug, but initially I don't know. I don't know it, only after the phase 2 data I know it. And then I'm going to look for a biomarker. And what I find is that patients that have, so in clinical trial, you will have a lot of very deep molecular data. And I can identify that those who do not have activity of the RAS pathway actually responded very well to my drug. But if RAS pathway, which is one of the signaling pathway that is a major pathway in cancer, those that have strong RAS activity actually do not respond to the drug. So if I have high RAS activity, it's a resistance mechanism. So now I'm basically saying, okay, so my biomarker will be a PI3K mutated ovarian cancer patient plus low RAS activity, okay? And now basically I want to ask, okay, so how do these patients respond to the standard of care? And to illustrate why this is a big problem, I'm going to just give you two scenarios. Scenario one, let's say that my population, the blue one, my new population, actually responds to a first-line therapy, to the standard of care, which in ovarian cancer could be all versions of platinum drugs, right? So if they get platinum and they get better, there's nothing more I can do for them. They have a drug that works. But the actually red population for which my drug does not work, they do not respond to the standard of care. They are the one who have a need. Now, the question is also not respond or non-respond, but for how much do they respond? So here I'm basically, of course, this is all made up. It's an illustration. It's not real data, okay? So let's look at the survival curve. And now I'm looking at my two population with drug X that I'm developing. So there's the blue, which is the responder, and the red. So here I'm projecting what would PI3K mutated low RAS activity look like. And of course, this is a survival curve. So higher is better. More people survive over time, okay? But what I see is that that exact same population will respond to the standard of care. So I don't have a lot of benefit. Even if there's a little bit, it's not that great. My drug will not do much better than platinum on that population. And when I'm looking at how my drug performs for those who have high RAS activity, it doesn't perform better than the standard of care. These are patients who actually need a new drug, and you can see that my drug doesn't work on them. So in that case, that's actually a very depressing sort of prediction, because it says that that drug is unlikely to make a major impact in the clinic. It works on the exact same people who already respond to existing therapies. It doesn't help the other ones. On the other hand, if I'm projecting something slightly different, I'm saying here I just changed the drugs where the curves where the drug is expected to work. If I'm saying, look, my drug works on that population that responds, but it actually does better, there's a significant improvement, now the drug has potential benefit. It's going to do, although that population responds to standard of care, my drug is going to give them a better outcome than the standard of care. That shows some potential, okay? So now let's go to another scenario. So that left part is the same. Now I've flipped the outcome. So I'm saying the blue population, the one that has a low RAS activity, they actually do not respond to standard of care, but the red one responds. So I basically flipped what standard of care does. Now let's see what it does in real life. So it's not real life, again, it's illustrated. So now my drug on the target population, they do very well, but the standard of care, which is the purple one, they do terribly, right? So now I've improved significantly. That looks like a really, really big value on that same population between my drug and the standard of care, which is in the bottom. And then the population which I identified that where my drug doesn't really work well, you can see that the standard of care is actually very similar. So for that population, it would make sense to exclude and to focus on the new population. And in that case, I really have a good biomarker that is worth developing before I go into a phase 3. And that's what we're really looking for. Okay, so I hope that example sort of illustrated how bringing in the standard of care could influence your path further, even if you identified a biomarker. Okay, so just to help you focus on what is the key challenge, there are two very important challenges here. The first one is that the biomarkers that we discover, because the data in clinical trials is actually very deep. In clinical trials, we collect a lot of data, we do biopsies, we do exome sequencing, all of those things. You will have a lot of great data, and that means you can recover or identify very important biomarkers. For example, what is RAS activity? It could be measured by gene expression, it could be measured by a combination of mutations and copy number amplifications. But then when you go to identify such people in electronic medical records, so EMR, you will not have these biomarkers because they are not measured routinely in the clinic. And that's a major problem. So one key aspect is, even if you identify a great biomarker, how will you match the patient population? Even if I give you access to all the medical data in the world, you will still not have a measurement because it's not being done. So you have to solve this problem. The second point is that it's not enough to show curves like I showed you. You need to build trust in it, because these are major decisions that people have to make that's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to their company. And you have to come up with a way to build confidence in the way you're matching patient population and in the way you are building that prediction. So that's the second major challenge, two challenges. Okay, so let's now talk about the data. I know this is always a big question. We did not want this to be a data play. We are not asking you to bring data. We're not asking you to be innovative in how to sign contracts with hospitals and insurance companies. We want you to focus on the approach, on how you will actually solve the problem, assuming you have relevant data. Okay, so data will always be an issue, but we can buy it, we can license it, we can do all sorts of collaboration. Those take time, it takes contracts. We want to put that issue aside. We will provide you with access to clinical trial data, to the control arms of clinical trial data. We picked lung cancer as the initial indication for which the different companies are now actually assembling their data. The control arms, which are done in clinical trials, so let's say a platinum drug in ovarian cancer, will be made available to you, but we will not give you the entire data set of a clinical trial, because it's a bit unfair. In electronic medical record, you will not have something like that. We will try to mimic what you will get in an EMR. So that means you will not get exome sequencing because it's not available in EMR. What is typically available is specific mutations, and for genes that were tested, like BRCA, KRAS, and things like that. We will try to mimic it as best we can. But we will give you a data set that should be sufficient to demonstrate your approach, okay? And that I think is the key part. So we want you to focus on the approach, on the method, on how you're going to do it with the initial data, and when the time is right, we will help you get access to bigger data sets. Okay, so far that's all I have to say about that challenge, and I want to walk you through the process. So if there are any specific questions, I see something in the chat, but let me quickly read this. Oh, this is Rita. Any specific questions on the challenge, on what I've just shared?
There's none. No questions. You can go.
Okay. So let's talk about the process. As you saw, we issued a challenge. That challenge is now going to be open until the end of August. Basically, if you are here, you are interested in learning more, the first thing you will have to do is to submit. So hopefully you already registered and provided some initial details. You have time to submit your application, which is a solution to the type of problem we described. But you have to choose one of two paths. You have to either submit your application as a group leader. We also call it scientist founder. That is for people who want to lead the startup. Okay, you want to be the leader. You can also submit it as a scientist co-founder or postdoc. This is for people who don't want to lead the startup, but would like to be co-founders in that startup. And you basically fill the application. Everyone is required to suggest a solution, both the co-founders and the group leaders, and you submit your applications. That's the first step. Once the challenge is closed, we, together with the pharma coaches, so every pharma company who is sponsoring that challenge as a team responsible for reviewing those applications, we will choose 5 scientist founders or group leaders and 10 co-founders, so 15 people in total. And then the third step is a 5-day boot camp here in Israel. We will fund your travel, your expenses, so we pay for everything, your food, your hotel, and you travel here to Israel. It's actually a great experience. We get very positive feedback on that. And during those 5 days, what you will do is work on your solution, on your plan. So initially you come, you get to know the people we invited, and you each have a presentation to give where you share some information about yourself. We call it My Life, My Work, My Passion, and it's sort of a self-TED talk. And then you each rank each other based on how much I would like to be on the same team with the other person. And there's an algorithm that Christian developed that basically finds the optimal solution from all these combinations. And then you basically have 5 teams of 3 people, a group leader and 2 co-founders. And what we do is we basically iterate with you, all the pharma coaches together on your ideas. So you come initially, you present your idea, you get a lot of feedback. So initially the feedback is harsh, you have to go back, think about the details, work with your team, come up with a different strategy, and you have to refine it. And every 3 to 4 hours, we have a coaching session, and that goes on and on around the clock until the 4th day, where you start to make your slides. So during in that boot camp, the goal is to make a 15-minute presentation that that basically wins the challenge. It's not about a hackathon. We're not going to challenge you with data. It's just making a good pitch on the concept of how you're going to solve it with your team. And during those 5 days, we actually observe how you work together, how you handle feedback, how you handle the stress. Very quickly, people stop sleeping because they would like it. It becomes very competitive. You get a lot of feedback. It creates a lot of energy. It's actually a very fun, it's a difficult but fun process. And at the end of the 5 days, you have basically presentation that you present to our investment committee, which is composed of senior VPs in the pharma. And you have a 15-minute presentation with your team, and then there are 15 minutes for question. It's sort of a Shark Tank format. And we do that with each group, and at the end, we actually choose the winner of that boot camp. The winner is going to be one of the group leaders, and that group leader is then free to choose or to offer a position to any of the co-founders, or to hire maybe later somebody. They're free to do whatever they want. They're ready to launch their company. At that point, you will basically start negotiating with us the terms of the contract. So anyone can apply. You don't necessarily need to have a PhD or a certain degree. We're looking for creative and brilliant people who can be founders of a startup. That's the process. I see there's a question.
Yeah, it's from Lorenzo again, a question which goes back to your previous slides. My in brackets silly question about the possible scenarios of the drug effects versus standard of care is, how do you make the projections then?
How do you make the projection? That's the question.
That's what you.
Yeah. So that's the challenge. That's for you to figure out. We present the challenge, you come up with solutions. If we knew how to do it, it wouldn't be a challenge. So obviously, this is a very big challenge that requires some original thinking. I hope I understood the question correctly. Okay, so what do you get once you win the bootcamp? you basically get to launch your new company here in AION Labs in Israel, and you have to physically be present in Israel, and Marty will show you why it's a great idea. We offer a $2 million package for 4 years, so you get $1 million for the first 2 and another $1 million for the second 2. Once and in the middle, we have to decide on a milestone together. You get access to, you have office space and labs, you don't have to pay for it, there's no overhead, so the money is all for you and you can use our facilities. And then from the pharma partners, you get, you will have an assigned coach from each, or mentor from each of the pharma companies. And basically it will be somebody senior enough to understand that problem deeply, who has access in their own organization to get you access to data, to link with other people. So these would be people who walk with you throughout this entire process. You have access to the AWS cloud. AWS will offer credit, so you can use the cloud for a certain amount of money per year. They will give you access to a team of engineers who can help you with setting up the environment, with whatever you need, customizing anything you need. So it's a great team. I'm already working with them, and they've been doing some pretty cool stuff with us. You have access to our VC partner, Israel Biotech Fund. They are responsible to making sure that you have a real company, you have a business model, that it's not just a science project. They will challenge you and they will help you throughout. Obviously, they will also help you with their network of investors when you get when you need additional funding. You have biomedics, Christian Tidona and his entire team who have a lot of experience with innovation. They've been doing great stuff since 2013, almost a decade, and they have a lot of experience working with pharma as well. And you will have access to the entire Israeli ecosystem, which is very dense and connected. And through Marty and myself, we will help you link with everybody. So what we're actually trying to do here is to build this ecosystem where you can come and work and you have your ideal environment to grow without worrying about contracts and where you will have an office and funding and so on. We want you to focus on the science. How do you solve the problem? And to do that POC with you. I think that's it on my side.
Very good. Thank you, Yair. If there's no immediate questions for Yair, I would like to ask our CEO, Marty, to give this quick presentation about what it is to start your own company in Israel.
So I am opening up the presentation right now, and I get to speak about something I'm very passionate about, which is why Israel, for those that have not been here, is an excellent place to both live in, but also to build your career in, and specifically in the life sciences sector. So Israel is, what we believe is truly a great place to launch your new company. And for those of you that are considering entering into the entrepreneurial space or continuing your career in the tech space and the biotech space specifically, we at AION Labs, like Yair mentioned, offer a great launching pad for you to start a new company with funding and a team that's dedicated to making sure that you're successful and removing all the potential barriers for your success. So we offer up to 4 years of funding, and we also offer you a network that can help tap into the best partners here in Israel, whether they be hospitals, universities. Israel has an excellent medical healthcare research center system and medical system in general, as well as top talents coming from universities, both in the computer sciences spaces as well as in life sciences. And Israel, from the healthcare perspective, is also the mecca of data with electronic medical records that are digitalized going back decades. With a very diverse population. So many companies from around the world, whether it's small companies, small biotech companies, as well as large pharma companies, come to Israel to want to conduct research with the health management organizations here, hospitals and university research centers as well. And what we offer you is a chance to launch your company with a built-in product market fit, where you're developing your science to address something that's been identified as a need of the industry. So we are going to do everything we can to provide you with the environment where you can focus on your science. We'll help take care of everything around that, including recruiting top talents, your financial and administrative support, relocation support if you need that as well, and being able to partner with the best partners here that are available both in Israel and from abroad. But living in Israel, beyond just the launching your startup aspect, is a lot of fun, I have to say, and it's a great quality of life for those that have not been to Israel yet. So we do have over 320 days of sun. It's a fantastic place to live here. You have a beyond the fact that our healthcare system is excellent for research, it is also excellent for primary care and for healthcare to be able to be provided for anyone that wants to live here and bring your family or kids here. It's also a great quality of life here, both for those that are interested in historical tourism or for having fun and a great culinary scene. There's a great social scene with a lot of expats that are coming from all around the world. The biggest complaint I always get from people that move to Israel is that they have a hard time learning Hebrew because everyone here speaks English. And there's also international schools if you would like to put, if you have children and would like to put your children in schools that speak English. And no matter where you come from in the world, there's a relatively short direct flight in most cases. In some cases, a short connection, but most cases there's a direct flight. And most of those flights, whether they're from Israel to the east or even all the way to Australia, become much shorter now that you can fly from Israel to any place in the world, flying over our neighbors' airspace as well. So you can really, no matter where you're coming from, if you want to be able to go visit your family and go back and forth here and there, it's very accessible here in Israel, very centrally located. From a cultural standpoint, so Israel is a great place to work. It's a very vibrant innovation startup ecosystem. There's a lot of deep respect for tech, for the tech industry and the innovation industry, from the government all the way to the informal cultural mindset, that people here have a deep respect for those that innovate, that those that want to create cutting edge technologies and help to launch them in the world. And the workplace also reflects in that we have a relatively flat dynamic where it's a meritocracy, where that if you come with great ideas, you are going to be heard and you're going to be able to access some of the most senior people in the industry in a very flat environment, both from within the company and ION Labs and our partners, as well as from the industry in general. And it's a very open and very progressive mindset in that sense in the work culture as well. Just a few basic facts. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can read them here, but there's multiple languages spoken here on the streets here. We're a country that's not that small. We're known for being a small country relatively, but we're almost 10 million people here and citizens, multiple faiths throughout the country, as well as a growing number of very strong global companies that were born in Israel and were able to go global from Israel. And I think the last thing I'll mention here is that Israel is a very young country. So we have a young population, high birth rate, and you'll see that, and you'll be able to make friends and community and build your communities here at a very easy pace. And specifically in our field from a scientific standpoint, so without going through every parameter, Israel is a great scientific ecosystem. We rank highly on all global scales and innovation science, and specifically in the life sciences aspects, with a strong research infrastructure here at multiple universities, including the Weizmann Center, which is right next to us in Israel. And our location in ION Labs is centrally located. So we are in the city of Rehovot, which is, in most normal countries, it would be considered a suburb of Tel Aviv, which is the big metropolis here in Israel. It's just it's 30-minute drives. It's 20 kilometers, so 30 minutes even takes in a little bit of traffic into that. It's a 40-minute train ride, which will even get shorter in a couple of years once the fast trains kick in. And you can drive 4 hours to the north and be in ski country up in the northern Galilee Hills and Golan Heights, and you can go 4 hours to the south and do some great diving in Eilat or cross the border to the Sinai or into Jordan and be able to do some great diving down at the Red Sea down there. So, and you can visit the Dead Sea. It's under 2 hours from where we are situated in Rehovot. So we are centrally located and a short drive from where I grew up personally in Jerusalem, which is also a fascinating place to visit. We chose to situate AION Labs in Rehovot because it's the center of the biotech industry in Israel, and one of the best biotech clusters, academic and industrial ecosystems in the biotech world globally. I would even say the Weizmann Institute is one of the top academic research centers in life sciences and sciences in general. Globally world renowned. It's very international. A lot of scientists come from all over the world to come and advance their research in the Weizmann Institute. And we have a very strong relationship with them, going back and forth and right across the street from us. So you're going to be able to, if you come to Israel, have a great relationship both with them and with all the biotech companies that are in the Rehovot Science Park. Right now, there's currently over 100 right in our neighborhood. And we built up a nice facilities with both a computational lab, which will be very comfortable for you to work out of, and we don't charge any overhead for this. So the cash that you get, that Yair mentioned, the $1 million for the first 2 years, another $1 million in years 3 and 4, is direct cash for your company, and you get the access to our office and facilities, including the computational and wet labs that will be built here and that are accessible at our partners in Merck. And you could see here, we built a very vibrant environment that will foster all the elements that Christian mentioned before, of trying to foster a culture of collaboration and doing well by helping each other, and really a cross-pollination in that standpoint. But I will mention again, you're very close to Tel Aviv, you're very close to, and even Rehovot has a nice nightlife by any aspects globally, but Tel Aviv, I think, is one of the best in the world. And at any time at night, you'll find people out at bars, restaurants, with a great culture scene here as well in Israel. So it's a lot of fun. It truly is a city that never sleeps. I would say it never works, but the productivity that comes out of the tech industry based out of Tel Aviv is outstanding. So I don't know when everyone gets their work done, when they're all having so much fun at the bars and cafes and restaurants, but apparently they do, because we have a great track record of building and growing great companies. So, but Tel Aviv is fantastic, and it's a short train or car ride from Israel. So I will ask everyone here on the webinar, please join our LinkedIn group, AION Labs on LinkedIn, join our Twitter group, follow us on both. We're very accessible at any point. My email is right here. You can reach out to myself, Yair. If you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to us. We're very responsive, very accessible. And I'll hand it back to Christian if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, dear Marty. So, are there any questions? We had already quite a few. Go ahead, this is your chance. Until maybe the questions are coming, one point we didn't address yet, maybe a question for Marty. Do people always need to apply as individuals, or can they apply as teams as well?
So yes, anyone can apply. You can apply as an individual. Of course, that's what Yair mentioned before, either as a group leader or a co-founder candidate, but you can apply as a company if you would like, as a company. If you want to come and compete, we're very flexible in our model, and you can apply as a team. And in fact, at least one of the winners of our boot camps won as a team of 2 partners that came as, one was designated as a group leader and the second as a co-founder, but in all essence and from a materiality standpoint, they're equal partners. And now they're building a company where one is a CEO and the other will be a CTO. Both are scientists, and they will just take a different focus in the way they develop their product and their company. So you can come as a team, and we'll make sure that you'll be able to work as a team. If you're a team of 3 people, great, you'll work that way throughout the boot camp. If you're a team of 2 people, then you'll have the opportunity to complement yourself with potentially a co-founder that can come and you can add to your team, and that will be able to complement certain expertise that you might not have coming into the boot camp. And that'll be an opportunity for you. And of course, if there's any specific questions about your specific personal circumstances, again, reach out to us. We're very accessible. You have my email or on LinkedIn. we're happy to answer any specific personal questions.
Yep, there's actually a question around this exactly. How should one apply as a team? If we're 3 people, should we send individual applications or a joint one? So technically, maybe I take this. In this online application system under career.bio.mx, it's important that every single one who wants to participate in the bootcamp needs to register as an individual. But then what you should do is you just submit the same application, all 3 of you, and indicate that you're in your application that you're applying as a team. And then we consider that when we select the people to be invited to the bootcamp. Okay, are there any other questions?
And again, I would just mention, even in that scenario, Christian, that if you're going to apply as a team and you feel comfortable doing so, please also mention that offline to one of us so that we can also look out to make sure that nothing gets missed in the process. And you could just reach out to Yair, myself, Christian, whoever, so that we can follow that throughout the process.
Yep. There's another question from Lorenzo, who was also at my seminar yesterday. Welcome back, Lorenzo. What happens if the project fails? Who wants to answer that?
I can take it. So I guess the same thing that happens to any startup that fails. You have to remember that at the end of the day, it's your company, right? So you're starting a new company. If the project fails, you pivot to something else. You try to find a different solution, and you basically keep going until you succeed or you run out of funding, right? That's what most startups do.
But I would like to add that the probability that you fail is much lower in the AION Labs context, because why do such companies fail? First of all, most of these companies build solutions that several years later on are looking for a problem they can solve, and then they find out there is no problem they can solve, at least not at this price. At AION Labs, all these challenges were identified by all the pharma companies as the biggest problems everyone wants to solve. So you will always work on something which is relevant. And second, with all this mentorship with Yair and all the mentors from the different companies over a 4-year time period, you will meet very frequently and get mentor input, meaning that what you produce and what you're developing in the end will be something which will be regarded by people in the industry as top standard according to industry standards. So you have this built-in product market fit, and you will build something which is appreciated by people from the industry. So that's a much higher probability of success than anywhere else. There is another question, which is a long question from Leonardo. Is it essential to have deep knowledge on AI, or should be good to having knowledge in other fields such as drug discovery? And the second question, I see so far the challenges were about clinical trials and antibodies. Will there be challenges related to small molecules-based drug discovery? I think that's for Yair.
Okay, so for the first question, that's really up to the solution you come up with. We don't have a specific, desire for you to come up with AI methodologies. I think it's a hot topic, but basically you can suggest any solution you think is appropriate. So it would be up to you. The second part was, the challenges. So we work on the challenges together with the pharma companies. Every year we have this ideation process. We're actually starting now the one for 2023. We're in the middle of it. And then every year we will release the 4 biggest challenges for next year. So the way this goes is that we sit with each pharma company trying to think about the top 5 challenges they think we can help them solve with computational tools. And then all the pharma companies together, we sit and we try to narrow this down to the 4 biggest challenges. So I can't really answer whether there will be something related to small molecule. Maybe it will come out of the process, but we're trying to put out there the biggest challenges every year.
Yeah, I mean, these challenges, they cover the entire drug discovery and development process, from early target identification to late-stage clinical trials. And as Yair said, it's very difficult to predict what the pharma companies will agree on. But there will be lots of challenges in fields that were not addressed here, because, of course, we will not duplicate anything. So The ones we have published already, they are running, and everything else will be coming up sooner or later.
Yeah.
Any other questions? There is one in Q&A. What would be the ideal profile of a co-founder applicant in terms of background, training, experience, etc.?
Tough question. So I think I don't know about ideal, but basically, if you want to be a co-founder, it means you would like to work in that startup, right? And you don't feel you're ready to lead in that field. For the group leaders, at least, we want somebody who has both the domain expertise and the technology, somebody who could really lead with the vision, the startup. For the co-founders, I think it makes more sense to have more diversity. They can come from multiple fields. We, as Christian said in the values slide, we do embrace diversity. We think it helps a lot to bring in knowledge from other fields into the space. So in that sense, I don't think there's an ideal profile, but we are looking for people who are creative, innovative, who are team players. The personal side is, and basically skills in that area are key, maybe more than the specific topic that they learned.
Yeah, very good points. While people are still thinking about questions, I have one for Marty. Do applicants have to be Jewish to apply?
No, absolutely not. We've had 3 winners so far, 2 Jewish and Israeli, 1 not Israeli, non-Jewish, and we're happy to have anyone from any background. The visa process in Israel, I think, is relatively very straightforward and simple. Is that you come as an expert scientist, and we help you apply for an expert visa, and you get a visa within 2 weeks. Is the standard process, so it should be very straightforward. And your spouse gets to work in Israel if you have a spouse. If you don't have a spouse, it's a great place to meet a spouse, and if you'd like to. And you're able to come with your spouse and each get working visas and live in Israel. And there's no prerequisite to be Israeli, Jewish, or anything else.
Very good. There is another question in the Q&A. Are there any preferences about age of the applicant? I think I can take this. Absolutely no. The only prerequisite is you're a good scientist. You understand what the challenge is all about. You're a person who enjoys co-creation in an open atmosphere with people from all different backgrounds. You're really passionate about what you're doing. You're coachable, and that's it. And this can be at any age. So we had people at Biomedics. We had at least 30 boot camps in the past, and we always have people in their 50s and 60s participating. No limitation whatsoever. And
also on the other side, we had the 23 brilliant young scientists.
Yeah.
We had even at AION Labs, we had a very wide range between, I would say, in 3 boot camps, 23 to 60.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
The question, by the way, in Hebrew was if we can clarify the goal of the prediction. So I hope that was clear. We would like to improve the success rate of phase 3. In every phase 3 that fails, remember that there was probably very encouraging data in phase 2. And then there's always the question of how did we fail? Why didn't we see this coming? And that's what we're trying to solve, just to reduce the number of phase 3 failures. That's the key goal. And to do that, this is actually, I don't know how much people are familiar with the pharma process, but actually bringing a novel biomarker between phase 2 and 3 was something that was considered crazy a few years ago. Now pharma is open to that. If there is a biomarker that justifies it, they will develop it and put it into the phase 3 and modify the design. That's a big step on the pharma side, which shows how much they are serious about doing something like that.
Another question, when will be the next boot camp? Yeah.
Next, not this one, after that one, you mean?
do not 100% understand it, but we can answer both. So this one will be in November.
Yeah.
Yes.
So dates are published on in the call.
The dates are the week of November 5th.
Yes.
So
exactly.
it will be the week of November 5th.
Yeah.
We have an optional tour in Jerusalem, always on November 5th, and then November 6 to 10, as Rita just put in the chat, are the actual dates of the boot camp. It ends on a Thursday evening. And for those that are interested in opportunities with other portfolio companies at AION Labs, are welcome to reach out to us. Also, for those that are interested in biomedics bootcamp opportunities, are welcome to follow on and to register on biomedics. We encourage you to do that, because then you'll get directly to your inbox every bootcamp opportunity, whether they're in Israel, Germany, or in the United States. And you will also receive direct notifications of the boot camps and challenges for AION Labs and biomedics in 2023. We will have, again, next year, a whole round of boot camps after we finish the ideation process that Yair mentioned before, and issue the 4 challenges that we will focus on next year. But this upcoming boot camp is the week of November 5th. Here in Israel.
And there's another one for you, Marty. Can AION Labs be approached with an idea besides these challenges?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have another track where we call it Track 2. It's a very creative name for the track, but it's basically where we are looking for solutions that address challenges we didn't think of in our process. So our primary track is where we come up with 4 challenges a year and run them through the bootcamp process. And I think we've spent a lot of time on that, so you understand how that works. But if you are coming with a technology, whether you're an early stage startup or an aspiring startup and an entrepreneur, or with a technology from an academic lab that you want to come and propose to us, you can pitch us with that idea. And we have a whole process where we first evaluate it from a technological standpoint at a very quick and high level, and then take it to our partners to see if it could potentially address one of their needs, a substantial need of the industry. And then we offer you the same package of support financially, relocation wise, and as well as all the other mentoring and data and all other support that we offer, just as any of our portfolio companies that come through the challenge process. So yes, but it has to be computationally based. So we're looking for groundbreaking ideas. They can be technologies that will build that address the challenges we identified, or they can be groundbreaking computational or AI-based technologies in the drug discovery and development space that address challenges we didn't think of. And you're welcome to reach out to us with those ideas.
Thank you, Marty. Any further questions? Last chance. Type fast. Okay, it doesn't seem to be the case. With this, I would like to thank our speakers, Marty and Yair. I would also thank our colleague Rita, who organized this wonderful webinar. And I would like to thank all of you participants for spending this time with us. As Marty said, please connect with us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, also personally register at career.bio.mx, and you will be informed about all our future calls for application and bootcamps. Thank you so much. And the recording, yes, there's another question. Will the recording be available somewhere? Yes, Rita will publish the recording on the website. Correct, Rita?
Correct. Also tomorrow at this time, everyone who's registered will receive an email containing the link.
Excellent. Thank you all, and looking forward, hoping to seeing many of you at one of our future bootcamps. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.